costs that much, cause it takes me fucking hours. It costs that much, cause I don't have superpowers. So you need to pay for my skills, cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much, cause it takes me fucking hours. You need to pay for my skills, cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much, cause it takes me fucking hours.
Has the mythical city of the lost city of Atlantis city been found city? We'll discuss tonight, city. I'm Mundus Ultra!
Well, if there's another thing...
Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Sunday to all y'all out there. It's your Uncle Warren, and it is another episode of Mundus Ultra. So tonight we are going to be talking about not necessarily the lost city of Atlantis in specifics. We're going to save that for another show down the road, talking about the lore and the aftermath of the destruction of the city. But tonight we're going to be talking about possible locations for where the city could have been. So several places around the world. It's kind of a crazy thing to imagine that a whole what was deemed a continent just disappeared overnight. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. But if you are new to the channel, and whether you're watching this live or watching this in the future, please do us a favor, give us a like, and share this, subscribe, tell your friends if they're into the kooky, weird, and the wonderful that is the paranormal, and UFOs, and cryptids, and all that good stuff. And cows that drive vehicles. Apparently, I still haven't gotten, I still don't understand that, and I created the thing. So, anyway, I appreciate you coming out here on an Easter Sunday, Passover, like I said, or if it's just Sunday to you. I always feel like shows like this are always great on Sundays. I don't know why. I've always, like shows like In Search Of, and, you know, watching Ancient Aliens on Sunday. I don't know why Sunday. It just always felt right to watch those kind of shows on Sundays, so. Saturday afternoons are kind of cool too, but that's more for like karate movies and Godzilla movies and stuff like that. We got people in the chat that are here to see the show, so I'm gonna shout you out. We got Rick, and we got Kate, and Dabby Dabs, and the Beast, one of our producers here this evening. Good to see all of y'all. And I noticed Kate was over on the Rockfin too, so probably going to be a light crowd today since it is a holiday, and people are probably doing stuff with their families and so forth, or maybe watching other shows. Speaking of other shows, I just want to get this out of the way right off the bat. Tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be on Trailer Park Pundit with Shanda. So looking forward to that. She wants to talk to Extra Bull about his presidential campaign. So I will be in presidential campaign mode tomorrow. That's right. You can pretend that I'm going to be president, because maybe it's going to happen. It's probably not. anyway, so, but that's tomorrow. And I'm also going to have Ryan Christian from The Last American Vagabond on Extra Bulla at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're doing an early bird special tomorrow, so that should be fun. So anyway, all the business out of the way. Let's get to the business at hand. So let's talk about the Eye of the Sahara. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the Eye of the Sahara. It's in the western part of northwestern part of Africa. And it's a unique, it's called the Richat structure, R-I-C-H-A-T. It's very weird to pronounce. You'd want to say Richat or Richat, but it's a Richat structure. And is it man-made? Is it natural? Well, here's some just a little video kind of to catch you up on what the structure is about, and hopefully this will make some sort of sense. We're going to assume it will. Let's go. So check out this video real quick.
What you are looking at is a massive circular feature within Mauritania. It is a truly beautiful geologic oddity largely only visible from satellite. Known as the Eye of the Sahara, it is a spectacular 40-kilometer or 25-mile wide feature which contrasts with the overall coloration of the surrounding landscape. We didn't know that this massive feature existed until we sent humans into space where they specifically searched for massive circular structures on the planet. However, this massive feature is not an impact crater. Although this geologic oddity does contain numerous concentric rings, it has a different origin which is partially volcanic. This video will discuss this spectacular feature and describe how it formed. The Eye of the Sahara can be found in west-central Mauritania, where it is not too far from the border with Western Sahara. Specifically, it is 175 kilometers east-northeast of the city of Afar. The Eye of the Sahara began forming 100 million years ago when the supercontinent Pangaea was breaking apart. At the time, the African and South American plates were separating from one another. This is why the edge of these two continents can seemingly fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, as they once were connected. The rifting of Pangaea caused an immense amount of volcanic activity. Some of the magma related with this event intruded into a weak point in the crust, which is now in western Mauritania. Over time, a large volume of magma totaling several hundred cubic kilometers of molten rock began pushing upwards towards the surface. This in turn began pushing the crust on the surface upwards, creating a series of ring-like layers. Over many millions of years, a large circular dome of uplifted rock formed due to the movement of magma over a wide area. Soon, the underlying magma came into contact with a large layer of limestone which was beneath the center of the eye. This interaction caused the limestone to dissolve, causing the center of the dome to collapse downwards, much like a sinkhole or volcanic caldera. The rock which filled this empty space is known as breccia. Eventually, a volume of magma got close enough to the surface that it began to interact with the surprisingly abundant groundwater in the region. This groundwater flashed to steam due to the intense heat, which caused an immense amount of pressure to build. Then, the pressure became too great and the ground exploded upwards in what is termed a phreatic eruption. After the ash and dust cleared, what remained was a 2-kilometer-wide crater. Today, the remnants of this mar can be observed due to the salts and other white mineralization in its crater. Eventually, the vast magma chamber cooled, causing the uplift to stop. In the more than 90 million years since, the ring-like layers have eroded away at uneven levels, largely dependent on their rock type. Harder rocks eroded away to form cliffs, while softer rocks were almost completely obliterated over time. As an example, limestone was most likely to completely erode away, while harder sandstone remained in the landscape. An interesting quirk of the Eye of the Sahara is that the oldest rocks are formed in its center, while the youngest rocks are found near its edge. Overall, more than 1.2 billion years of geologic history are exposed in this vast feature. Although best visible via satellite or an airplane, it can be visited via a number of remote dirt roads. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to request a specific topic, please leave a comment below. Additionally, if you wish to support this channel, consider becoming a patron on Patreon.
Yes, all very good information there. So me give credit to that channel. So that's from Geology Hub. So that's basically what they were saying is Mauritania in the northwest part of Africa. So they're saying it was a geologic formation, right? So it's kind of interesting though, because let's see if we can get a picture of this here. Here we go. This is, nope, don't do that. Let's see. Go back here. There we go. Okay. So let's just take a look at it again for a second. Now the lost city Atlantis was supposed to be this concentric ringed city, right? But then they also said it's a continent. So it really doesn't make sense why that. I mean, what is it? Was it a city? Was it a continent? It's kind of like the whole Nibiru thing, where they think, is Nibiru a planet or is Nibiru a brown dwarf star? So kind of some conflicting information here. But as you take a look at this, let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. The narrator sounded like an ET who hasn't yet mastered human vocal cadence. Yeah, it was probably one of those AI voices. I hear those a lot on these videos now. So I was thinking about getting AI to replace my voice, so I could just sit here and like eat candy while the show's going on. So and still say I was doing the show. But check out these rings. I mean, look how. Okay, I can understand if there was an eruption of steam that the pressure built up and it just blew a crater out of this part of Africa. But I mean, look how round those circles are. It seems a little too not natural, right? You don't see a lot of patterns like this where even though granted you're looking at it from a great distance, whereas up close it's probably not going to be as smooth with the circles. But I mean, it's just incredible to look at. So, but let's let me set something up here real quick. So now, when did this happen? When did this happen to this eye of the, when was this created? It had to be created in a time when there was green. It was green when the Sahara was green, right? Because there hasn't always been a desert, right? There are some theories that that part of Africa became a desert due to agricultural, that it was man-made. Miguel said it might be natural if we throw a stone on a lake, it makes circles, so not necessarily unnatural. Right? That's true. That's true. But you're talking about the fluidity of water, though, where it's easy to make even rings come out like that, right? When you're talking about sandstone and dirt, which is not fluid, right? Granted, you could if you use there's I think they did this in one of this chapel in Scotland, where they used acoustics and they could make they put sand on a table, right? And they hit a certain key, a tone or some sort of musical note, and it made the vibrations made patterns in the sand. So I mean, it could be something natural, but it just looks a little too on the nose. Hang on just a second here. I just want to find where this was talking about green, the green, yes, here we go. The green Sahara. So let's get into this a little bit. So what really turned the Sahara Desert from a green oasis into a wasteland, right? So 10,000 years ago, this iconic desert was unrecognizable. A new hypothesis suggests that humans may have tipped the balance. So, so this is around the time that we're talking about, was about 11,000 years ago. So at the time, the Sahara was green. And so it's quite plausible that if there was a city in or a continent like that in the northwest part of Africa, it quite possibly could have been a successful advanced civilization. Whereas if you're trying to have a civilization in the desert, you're going to run into a lot of problems. And it could have been, yeah, Miguel, it could have been climate change. That's for sure too. So, when it came to the Sahara and what made it a desert, archaeologist David Wright thinks maybe humans and goats tipped the balance, kickstarting this dramatic ecological transformation. In a study in the journal Frontiers in Earth Science, Wright set out to argue that humans could be the answer to a question that plagued archaeologists and paleontologists for years. The Sahara has long been subject to periodic bouts of humidity and aridity. These fluctuations are caused by slight wobbles in the tilt of the Earth's orbital axis, which in turn changes the angle at which solar radiation penetrates the atmosphere. At repeated intervals throughout Earth's history, there's been more energy pouring in from the sun during the West African monsoon season, and during those times, known as African humid periods, much more rain comes down over North Africa. With more rain, the region gets more greenery and rivers and lakes, and all this has been known for decades. But between 8,000 and 4,500 years ago, something strange happened. The transition from humid to dry happened far more rapidly in some areas than could be explained by the orbital precession alone, resulting in the Sahara Desert as we know today. So kind of a snowball process of what happened as far as the desert is concerned. Now I'm kind of cheating a little bit tonight, so this is not all going to be about the Richat structure per se. It's just it's to me and to others that have been talking about this. They theorize that this may be the most, if Atlantis even existed at all, this is the most logical place for it. So let me where was that? Okay, I can get rid of that now. Thank you. So let's step back just for a second and talk a little bit about Atlantis and some of the theories about Atlantis. So let me look here. Here we go. So Atlantis was a mid-Atlantic continent that suddenly sunk into the ocean. That seems to be the main belief by a lot of people when it comes to Atlantis. Like, it was this big continent out in the middle of the Atlantic, off the west coast of Africa. And so that kind of lends a little bit of credence to at least the location of where it possibly could have been. So the idea that Atlantis was an actual historical place and not just a legend invented by Plato didn't surface until the late 19th century. In his 1882 book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, the writer Ignatius Donnelly argued the accomplishments of the ancient world, such as metallurgy, language, and agriculture, which must have been handed down by an earlier advanced civilization, as the ancients weren't sophisticated enough to develop these advances on their own. Now, you're talking about in the time of the Sumerians, when you saw this boost in, at the time, technology and ways of growing food. The humans had stopped being nomadic people and had settled down and started building houses and raising crops, and this happened in a relatively short amount of time. And a lot of people have wondered how that advancement for humanity happened so quickly. And one theory is that the remnants of Atlantis, the survivors who had made it out, who had survived, had spread across the earth. And you can read in all different cultures around the world talking about people with advanced knowledge who had visited their peoples and had taught them different ways, better ways to do things. And it's pretty fascinating. But like I said, we'll save that for a more in-depth conversation about Atlantis. Now this is probably one of the granddaddies. A lot of people think this too. So Atlantis was swallowed up by the Bermuda Triangle. So there are a lot of kooky things that happen between Bermuda. I think it's Bermuda and Miami and Jamaica. I could be wrong about that. About the Jamaica part. So, and the cops are coming to get me, y'all. They're coming to take me away. Ha ha, hee hee, ho ho. That's New York for you. So inspired by Donnelly, many later writers expanded on his theories and added their own speculation as to where Atlantis may have been. And one of these writers was Charles Berlitz, the grandson of the founder of the well-known language schools and author of many books on paranormal phenomena. I know, right? It is quite alarming. In the 1970s, Berlitz claimed Atlantis was a real continent located off the Bahamas that had fallen victim to the notorious Bermuda Triangle, a region of the Atlantic where a number of ships had supposedly disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And supporters of this theory pointed to the discovery of what looks like man-made walls and streets found off the coast of Bimini. Although scientists have evaluated these structures and found them to be natural beach rock formations. Although, again, they don't look natural, but then again, you can't really write that off that it is an unnatural structure, the Bimini Road. So now I have here, I'm kind of all over the place. I was running a little late today, so I apologize. Oh, it's Puerto Rico. Thank you, Miguel. Where they were talking about the Bermuda Triangle. Here we go. So bear with me here. It's been a crazy Sunday. So yes, Bermuda Triangles, mysteries, UFOs, in connection to Atlantis. Most of us will have heard of that place. So, and a lot of plane crashes, a lot of ships going missing. There's also the Bruce Gernon encounter, which is crazy story. So I won't get into all this. I'll just give you the nutshell of what it's about. So Bruce Gernon's flying back to Miami. And apparently this was, he made it in record time. And it was impossible because of the speed that he went. It wasn't about the speed, it was the time. He goes through this elliptical cloud, a very strange cloud, hovering about 500 feet over the surface of the water. It was about a mile in front of their Beechcraft Bonanza A-36 aircraft. So they would radio to the Miami Control Tower for information on any adverse weather conditions. So basically, he goes through this cloud, right? And it's just, it's a cloud like unlike he's ever seen before. And apparently Gernon had been, he was an expert pilot, and it was something that he had never seen before. Abnormally shaped in the form of a giant semicircle extending around us. So the cloud surrounded the plane, and all kinds of strange stuff was going on. So then as they approached the Bimini Islands came another strange cloud, and what's more, the small passenger plane still around 100 miles from Miami was about to head straight into it. So like it just kind of made this tunnel looking thing. So he claims that he experienced zero gravity for a short period. He had the feeling that the tunnel they were in was the same one they had escaped to begin with, that the cloud near Andros and the cloud near Bimini were actually opposite ends of the same ring-shaped body. A wormhole, if you will. So he goes from Bimini to Miami in 20 seconds, which is impossible. But that's that area of the Bermuda Triangle. All kinds of strange things happening. I think there was a squadron of planes in World War II that there was five, I think it was 5 planes, and they all disappeared. Lost radio contact, all went into supposedly into the drink. Who would, who's to say for sure? So let's get back to the Bimini Road, right? Which is in the Bermuda Triangle. So the island of Bimini is of interest due to the insistence of some that the remains of Atlantis lie beneath the stretch of water. And one of the big pieces of evidence is the Bimini Road, which sometimes referred to as the Bimini Wall. This ancient structure was discovered in 1968 by Joseph Mason Valentine, a subsea archaeologist. After revealing the paved structure under the clear blue waters, subsequent visits by research would reveal further linear structures, suggesting in theory the remains of an ancient ruin. What made this discovery even more remarkable, at least to some, was it apparently fulfilled a prophecy given by Edgar Cayce. That's a cool cat that we're going to do a show on too. The sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce, 30 years previously. He had stated that Atlantis was a real place that had suffered a cataclysmic end. Most interestingly though, he said remains of Atlantis would begin to be discovered in 30 years, in 1968, the same year that they found the Bimini Road. A portion of this he said, a portion of the temples may yet to be discovered under the slime and seawater near Bimini in 68 or 69. So fascinating thought that Atlantis, it's been theorized that Atlantis had advanced technology, maybe using crystal energy, not unlike a certain presidential candidate, but that's for another show to talk about. A lot of other theories is that there's a high methane presence underneath the water in the ocean there, that when and the way methane works, when it bubbles up, it decreases the buoyancy for anything that's on top. It decreases the buoyancy on the surface level of the ocean. So a lot of times you run, it's like weak water. You go across it and you go into the drink. So that's one possibility. It's not a fun sounding theory, but it is a possibility. Kate says, when you cover Edgar Cayce, let's go for 3 hours. I might bring Marcus back in on that one. I have to ask him his opinion on what he thinks about Edgar Cayce, because Edgar Cayce was he was a very religious person too. He wasn't like some just heathen kook. That was he was a very well respected person. So that is a very interesting story. So let's get back to more theories about Atlantis. And I know I'm kind of rushing through this, so I apologize for that. But there is really a lot of stuff to go through here. So Atlantis was in Antarctica. Now, this is one of my favorite theories. I tend to believe this, that at some point there was a polar shift, and the Earth itself actually turned to where Antarctica would have been feasibly where the middle of the Atlantic is now, right? And then the Earth turned and put it at the South Pole, and then it became, of course, the low temperatures, it became covered in ice. So another theory that Atlantis was actually a much more temperate version of what is now Antarctica is based on the work of Charles Hapgood, whose 1958 book Earth's Shifting Crust featured a foreword by Albert Einstein. According to Hapgood, around 12,000 years ago, the Earth's crust shifted, as we said, displacing the continent that became Antarctica, from a location much further north than it is today. This more temperate continent was home to an advanced civilization, but the sudden shift to its current frigid location doomed the civilization's inhabitants the Atlanteans, and their magnificent city was buried under layers of ice. So Hapgood's theory surfaced before the scientific world gained a full understanding of plate tectonics, which largely regulated his shifting crust idea to the fringes of Atlantean beliefs. Has the Earth's crust shifted? There's continental drift for sure, but we're talking about a dramatic full quarter turn of the planet. Even though I like that theory a lot, it is a little bit more implausible than some of the other ones that we're going to be talking about where it was. But you know, that and Kate, and Antarctica is probably going to be a multi-part series because there's so much craziness in Antarctica. I'm going to try and get in a friend that I know who's kind of an expert on Antarctica and all the weirdness that surrounds it. So hopefully we'll bring him in soon. So the story of Atlantis was a mythical retelling of the Black Sea flood. So the theory presumes Atlantis itself was fictional, but the story of its demise was inspired by an actual historical event, the breaching of the Bosporus by the Mediterranean Sea and subsequent flooding of the Black Sea around 5600 BC. At the time, the Black Sea was a freshwater lake, half its current size. The flooding inundated civilizations known to flourish along its shore with hundreds of feet of seawater in a short period of time, perhaps less than a year. And as inhabitants from the region scattered, they spread tales of the deluge, and many have led thousands of years later to Plato's accounts of Atlantis. So there have been flood myths around the world, not just in that particular area, but you can see where those particular beliefs that the Great Flood was worldwide, because at the time they know the people in that area didn't know of other places around the planet. They hadn't discovered the Americas. There was other places that that they weren't able to reach and get knowledge of. It wasn't like you could get on Google Maps and look for places, so that in the known world, there was these floods that occurred and devastated everything. But as we found out with cultures around the world, it seems like every culture around the world has a flood myth story to tell. And a lot of times the characters involved are interchangeable as well. Atlantis is the story of the Minoan civilization, which flourished in the Greek islands circa 2500 to 1600 BC. So, talking about the island of Thera, which was Santorin, one of the more recent Atlantean theories concerns the civilization that flourished on the Greek islands of Crete and Thera, now Santorini, more than 4,000 years ago. The Minoans, named for the legendary King Minos. Believed to be Europe's first great civilization, the Minoans built splendid palaces, constructed paved roads, and were the first Europeans to use a written language. At the height of their power, however, the Minoans suddenly disappeared from history, an enduring mystery that has fueled belief in a link between this great doomed civilization of Plato's Atlantis. Historians believe around 1600 BC, a massive earthquake shook the volcanic island of Thera, triggering an eruption that spewed 10 million tons of rocks, ash, and gas into the atmosphere. Tsunamis followed the eruption that were large enough to wipe out Minoan cities throughout the region. Devastation that may have made the Minoans vulnerable to invaders from the Greek mainland. Kate, yes, believe it or not, I heard that there is some secrets surrounding Antarctica. Yes. Antarctica is a pretty wild place. And you're talking about, well, why haven't we found these places? Well, some people claim that they've seen pyramids poking out of the ice, like the tips of pyramids poking out of ice. Other skeptics claim, well, that's just mountains. And you're talking about like a 2 mile thick layer of ice on top of the continent. So anything that is under there now is probably crushed and pulverized. We've seen what ice sheets can do around the time right before the end of the Ice Age, where you had the North American ice sheets that carved out the Great Lakes and just devastated the land because of the sliding ice and how heavy it was and the friction from it. So that could be the case with Antarctica. So if Atlantis was Antarctica, or if Antarctica was Atlantis, all of that stuff could either be destroyed or it might be preserved in ice too. It depends on how advanced the technology was. Like I said, even if it existed. Kate's catching up. Where did I hear about this Antarctica weirdness? Yes, it's everywhere. All right. One theory, Atlantis didn't exist at all. Plato invented it. So most historians and scientists throughout history have come to the conclusion that Plato's account of the lost kingdom of Atlantis was fictional. So the original troll, Plato, say, yeah, Atlantis, this place is great. According to his argument, the Greek philosopher invented Atlantis as his vision of an ideal civilization and intended the story of its demise to be a cautionary tale of the gods punishing human hubris. No written records of Atlantis exist outside of Plato's dialogues included in any of the numerous other texts that survived from ancient Greece. Furthermore, despite modern advances in oceanography and ocean floor mapping, no trace of such a sunken civilization has ever been found. Yes, Plato played all, is one theory. Although, I don't know. You had to be like you got to be a real asshole to just make that up, because that's a really cool story. Pardon. Yeah, so now let's check out some other possibilities for where Atlantis could have been. And this is coming from where is this coming from? Greek legends and myths.com. So try to I don't like to do footnotes, but you know, I like to tell you where I'm getting my stuff from. So theories about Atlantis, the lost city. Where was it? Was it real? So before anybody can put forward possible locations for Atlantis, the question was it real? And that has to be answered. Plato wrote briefly of Atlantis in two dialogues, so Timaeus and in the incomplete Critias, with the works written in about 360 BC. So you're talking about Plato writing about events that happened thousands of years before he came around. These are the first surviving written records to mention Atlantis, although Plato would suggest that he got the story of Atlantis from the Egyptians. That's interesting. The Egyptians. You talk about the Egyptian pyramids there and how the construction of the pyramids was so advanced that we couldn't even replicate that today. With the same materials, that is. I mean, we can pour concrete and make things seamless and that sort of thing. That's no problem. But to put blocks together where you can't even get a piece of paper in between them and to line them up that precisely, I mean, that takes advanced engineering, and people at the time, were there geniuses? Probably, but, you know, maybe these geniuses were former Atlanteans. Not from Atlanta, but from Atlantis. Although there are geniuses in Atlanta, Georgia. So, to be fair. Plato, though, also says that the events of which he wrote took place 9,000 years previously, which so 9360, so around 10,000 years, or about 12,000. You know, add two more thousand. That's about 12,000. Which sounds about right. This also sounds about right with Graham Hancock was talking about during the Younger Dryas, when he theorized that meteors struck the ice shelf in North America and in the northern continents, where the ice shelves were formed, and that's why there was such rapid ice melting so quickly, and that would cause a lot of flooding. That would cause a quick rise in sea levels. Because as Plato lived over 2 millenniums ago, so he could have been referring to any land from that era. That's true. That's true. But like I said, he got inspired by the Egyptians on this. So it could be that, who did he speak to? Which what scholar did he get that information from? That remains to be seen. So So like we said, here's some possible options for where Atlantis might have been. Santorini, one of the most common theories, also being known as Thera. A strong case for Santorini being Atlantis was first put forward by Angelos Gallinopoulos in 1960. Crete, along with other 3 islands, has the same problems as Santorini. When it comes to possible locations in Atlantis, while being islands, they aren't in the Atlantic. So then you have Andalusia, traveling right to the west of the Mediterranean Sea, brings the searcher of Atlantis to Andalusia in Spain. I believe I have something on that. Do I have something on that? I probably don't. So as we look, I mean, it seems like this story of Atlantis and where it is and where it could be, it's kind of like it depends on who you ask kind of situation, right? So, and of course the story of Atlantis could have been spread like a game of telephone too. If you don't know what the game of telephone is, it's where you line up maybe you get like 10 people, right? And one person at the one end of the line says, I like peanut butter sandwiches, and they tell the next person, they whisper it in the next person's ear, and then they whisper it, and they go down the line. By the time it gets to the end of the line, it's I hate your mother. So it went from I like peanut butter sandwiches to I hate your mother. So the message gets murky and misinterpreted and misunderstood, and that's what kind of could have happened with the story of Atlantis too. So why they think it might be all over the place. Yes, this is the part where we hear the sounds of Donovan's song Atlantis. The Atlantic Ocean was actually named after the Greek god Atlas, so Atlantis has Greek mythology all over it. I mean, that's another thing too to talk about is were the Greek gods actual beings? We'll discuss that in another episode at some point, but there's always the possibility that either they were very highly advanced technological humans, or maybe they were not of this world. So that is a big possibility. Miss Jimmy's here. It says, I say Atlantis is in the Bermuda Triangle. It could be. It could very well be. It's just, if only we had some proof. If we just had just like one bit of something, it was like a piece of metal or something like that that's not found on the earth today, right? Like maybe something that was manufactured in the past, but then the recipe for it was lost to time, and it's like some sort of like lightweight metal, like you would think about would be in a UFO craft, where it's just like malleable, but you can't break it, and it's very light, that sort of thing. So I'm hoping at some point we do get to see that. So another one here, and this is what I wanted to talk about here. We're kind of running out of time here. I knew this was going to happen. So I knew it was going to happen, yet here we are. Speaking of the Caribbean, we'll go back to the Caribbean here and let's talk about Cuba for a second. So, wait a minute. Did I do this one already? Okay, I did that one. Sorry. Where is... There it is. There we go. Sorry about that. So what happened to the sunken city of Cuba, right? So here we have, they had found an underwater, what they seemed to think was an underwater city in Cuba. Just over a decade ago, a team of explorers were working on an exploration and survey mission off the west coast of Cuba when their sonar equipment picked up a perplexing series of stone structures lying some 650 meters below the surface. The structures appeared completely analogous against the barren desert of the ocean floor and seemed to show symmetrically organized stones reminiscent of an urban development, kind of similar to the Bimini Road. A media flurry soon ensued with news sites sporting headlines such as Atlantis discovered in Cuba and Lost City of the Caribbean found. However, the finding also attracted the attention of the government. The National Museum and National Geographic all made promises to investigate the strange sonar images. 10 years later, the stories disappeared into obscurity. Whatever happened to the sunken ruins of Cuba? Were they ever fully investigated? And why has the media fallen silent on this unusual discovery? Maybe they did find that element of something so bizarre that you can't find today or doesn't even exist on Earth. It could be that they found some sort of piece of that in this, what they thought was a city under Cuba. And finally, I know you're like, what? Finally? Let's talk about High Brazil. And no, I'm not talking about the weed smokers in South America. So, High Brazil. Does a mythical island really exist off the coast of Ireland? So once again, we're back in the Atlantic now, talking about this mysterious island that has tended to disappear and reappear depending on explorers and seafarers who have witnessed this island and then have gone back to the same spot and it was gone. So imagination merges with reality, where the island of High Brazil is remembered in both travelers' records and ancient Irish legends. Ireland could indeed have its own version of Atlantis, if not the actual Atlantis itself. Information gathered by historian Fiona Broom, as well as Celtic mythological enthusiasts, show the intersection of myth and reality in regards to the island of High Brazil, which is also known by variants High Brazil, High Brazil, High Brazil, and Brazier. The over-the-shoulder boulder holder, among others. In Celtic folklore, this island country takes its name from Bresal, and I'm probably butchering all these names, I apologize if you're Irish, the High King of the world. However, as the Atlantic began to be more thoroughly explored, the name of High Brazil may have been attached to a real place, providing some evidence attached itself to the Irish myth. So this island was noted on maps as early as 1325 when cartographer Darlotto placed the island west of Ireland. On successive sailing charts, it appears southwest of Galway Bay. Both St. Baron and St. Brendan found the island on their respective voyages and returning home with nearly identical descriptions, which they dubbed the Promised Land. A Catalan map of about 1,480 labels an island as Ilha de Brasil to the southwest of Ireland. So the most distinctive geographical feature is that it appears on maps as a perfect circle with a semicircle channel through the center. The central image on the Brazilian flag, a circle with a channel across the center, was the symbol for High Brazil on early maps. Yeah, I know. I'm in third grade, Miguel, as I had to say Brazier. The circular perimeter of the island was confirmed by both Saints Berend and Brendan, who separately walked the shores to determine where the islands ended, but never found it. Most likely they were walking in circles. One of the most famous visits to the island was in 1674 by Captain John Nisbet of Killybegs Company, Donegal, Ireland. He and his crew were in familiar waters west of Ireland when a fog came up. As the fog lifted, the ship was dangerously close to rocks. While getting their bearings, the ship anchored in 3 fathoms of water, and 4 crew members rowed ashore to visit High Brazil. They spent a day on the island and returned with silver and gold that was given to them by an old man who lived there. The last supposed sighting was in 1872 by Roderick O'Flaherty in a choreographical description of West or H. Larconet. He tells us of the reported old man by saying, "There is now living Moragole, who imagines he was himself personally on O Brazil for 2 days and saw out of it the Isles of Arran, Gollum Head, Arisbeghill, and other places of the West Continent he was acquainted with." So yeah, it's the island itself or continent is a fascinating thing to talk about. Like I said, we're going to go more in depth about the legends of the peoples themselves in another episode. But I always going back to the Richat structure, how geographically and geometrically perfect those circles are. And if you can think back to a time when the Sahara was green, you're talking about flowing rivers, you're talking about bays of water, and even though the structure is 250 miles inland, you could have had an inlet. You could see on there or surrounding, it looks like an eye because the concentric circles look like the eyeball, like the iris and the pupil and all that, but there's an extending indenture around it, which makes it look as though that once held a large body of water, like an inland bay or sea that could have surrounded it. So that's why I think, even though I do like the Antarctica theory, I know Jimmy likes and a lot of other people like Bermuda Triangle. I mean, my heart goes for Antarctica, but my head goes for the Eye of the Sahara being the winter chicken dinner. So anyway, that's just like I said, I wanted to just wet your whistle a little bit about Atlantis, because at some point we're gonna do a deep dive into Atlantis, like the people, the cultures, at least what the legends say about them, and how that their island disappeared into the ocean and what happened to the survivors. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, or at least sharing that with you and reading about it too, because I have fun researching this kind of stuff myself. So one of our producers here, Pacheco Rome, good to see you. Remnants of ancient monuments: the Sphinx, pyramids, Ohio Serpent Mound, Chaco Canyon, not to be confused with Choco Taco, which had been discontinued. Boo hiss. Stonehenge, all have precise astronomical alignments calculated into their structures. Yes, they do. For a reason, to align with the solstices, and it's for some it was for astronomical references, for timekeeping. So you did have elders the wise people in the days that were keeping track of this. Even the Mayans, had their calendar that was extremely precise, probably more precise than the calendars that we use. So, but I am, Kate, this was fun. I would, like I said, I apologize. I'm a little rushed with this. I had some stuff to do today beforehand. So, and then I got caught up in a little bit of gaming earlier, and then I was like, oh shit, I didn't finish my stuff. So, but hopefully I provided enough information to make you feel like you want to know more about Atlantis. And like I said, we're going to do that on another show in the future. So I'm going to get out of here. Right now, I believe Due Dissonance is on with my buddies Keaton and Russell. So if you want to go check them out, they're on YouTube. I don't know if they're on Rockfin. They might be, but I know they're definitely on YouTube, and I think they're on Facebook as well. Exactly. You gamed instead of worked out with, and you gamed instead of worked without me. Exactly. I'm sorry, Jimmy. Rain check. I played with you yesterday. Maybe we'll play later if you want to. So anyway, thanks everybody for coming out. I appreciate all y'all. If you want to support the show, please do so. And checking the poll, everybody thinks Atlantis really exists. That is awesome. I love this crowd. You guys are very open-minded and very critical thinkers, but at the same time, it's always kind of fun to wonder about stuff that lies in the world beyond. So, and that's what Mundus Ultra is all about. So we'll see you next week, next Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Easter, Passover, Sunday, whatever you're doing today. And we'll see you next time. Peace.